When billionaire Elijah Thorne adds a name from his past to his elite gala guest list, he doesn't expect Serena Miles, the woman who once raised him, to show up looking like a queen. But what happens when memory collides with desire and secrets threaten everything? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Elijah Thorne's penthouse office. At 29, he was already the talk of New York's business world. Handsome, wealthy, and ruthless, just like his father had taught him to be. "Mr. Thorne, the board is waiting in the conference room," his assistant said from the doorway. Elijah didn't look up from his computer. "Tell them I'll be there when I'm ready." The assistant nodded and disappeared. Everyone at Thorne Hotels knew better than to rush the boss. Elijah finally stood, adjusting his custom suit. He gazed out at the Manhattan skyline, a view most people only dreamed of, but something felt empty. It always did, though he'd never admit it. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother, Victoria. "Don't forget the gala invitations must go out today. I've approved the final list." Elijah sighed. The annual Thorne family gala was the social event of the season. Old money, new celebrities, and politicians all clamoring for an invitation. His mother had been planning it for months. He scrolled through the list on his tablet. The usual suspects: wealthy donors, business partners, and socialites his mother hoped he might marry. And then, a memory surfaced. One he thought he'd buried years ago. Serena Miles. His hands stilled over the tablet. How long had it been? 15 years? No, 13. He'd been 16 when his mother had fired her without warning or explanation. Serena had been only 7 years older than him, but had felt like the only adult who ever truly cared. When his parents were away, which was most of the time, Serena had been there. Not just as help, but as family. The board meeting could wait. Elijah sat back down and typed Serena Miles into the search bar. It took several attempts, but finally, there she was. Working at a community center in Brooklyn. There was another job listed too. Night shifts at a hospital. 2 jobs. She was 36 now. Something twisted in Elijah's stomach. Was it guilt or something else? On impulse, he added her name to the gala invitation list. His mother would be furious, but he didn't care. He told himself it was just curiosity, just to see what had become of her. But deep down, in a place he rarely acknowledged, he knew it was more. Serena Miles's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. Another day, another dollar, or rather dollars. She needed every cent. Her small apartment was neat but worn. After helping her father through his long illness before he passed, her savings had been drained. The medical bills had been crushing. Now, at 36, she was starting over. She got ready quickly. First shift at the community center started at 7. Then she had a few hours before her night job at the hospital began. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't often afford. As she left, she grabbed the mail she'd been too tired to check the night before. Bills, ads, and a thick cream-colored envelope with embossed gold lettering. Serena almost dropped it when she saw the return address. Thorne Hotels. The Thornes. A name she'd forced herself to forget. She should throw it away. That part of her life was over. But curiosity won out. Inside was an invitation to the annual Thorne Family Gala, along with a small handwritten note. For old time's sake. E.T. Elijah Thorne. The boy she'd practically raised. The family that had cut her off without a word. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered, shoving the invitation into her bag. All day, as she worked with the kids at the center, the invitation nagged at her. Why now? After all these years? During her lunch break, she pulled it out again, studying the elegant script. The gala was at the flagship Thorne Hotel in Manhattan. The dress code was formal. "What's that?" asked Denise, her co-worker. "Nothing, just an invitation to a fancy party." Denise's eyes widened. "From the Thornes? Girl, those tickets go for thousands. I used to work for them a long time ago. Are you going?" Serena laughed. "Of course not. I don't have time for rich people games." She tossed the invitation aside, but that night, as she made her rounds at the hospital, she couldn't stop thinking about it, about him, little Elijah with his serious eyes and rare, beautiful smile. The boy who'd curl up next to her during thunderstorms, who'd bring her wildflowers from the garden. What kind of man had he become? Elijah sat in his father's old office, now his since Howard Thorne's stroke 2 years ago. His father still lived in the family mansion, cared for by nurses, but the business had passed to Elijah. His mother, Victoria, burst in without knocking. "Explain this," she demanded, slapping a paper on his desk. It was the final gala guest list. "Hello to you too, Mother." "Serena Miles? You invited the help? Elijah kept his face neutral. Former help, and yes. Why would you do something so ridiculous? After you specifically what, Mother? Fired her without cause? She practically raised me. Victoria's perfectly made-up face hardened. She was getting too familiar. You were becoming too attached. I was a child who lost his nanny every 2 years because you couldn't stand anyone getting close to me. She was inappropriate. She was kind, Elijah shot back. Something this family knows nothing about. Victoria straightened. Remove her name. No. Elijah, I'm warning you. The invitations are already sent. He stood, towering over his mother. This is my company now. My gala. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Fine, have your little reunion. But remember who we are, Elijah. Thorns don't mix with the help. After she left, Elijah sank back into his chair. Why had he done it? Was it just to spite his mother? Or was there something else, something he wasn't ready to admit even to himself? The truth was, he wanted to see Serena again, to show her he'd become successful, important, maybe even to make her regret leaving. But she hadn't left. She'd been fired by his mother. He pushed the thought away. He told himself this was just a game. Invite her, show off his success, then send her on her way. Nothing more. A week before the gala, Serena still hadn't decided whether to go. The invitation sat on her dresser, a golden key to a world she'd left behind. Her phone rang. It was Maya, her best friend. Have you decided yet? Maya asked without preamble. I'm not going. Oh, yes, you are. I already got you a dress. Maya, I can't afford... It's my cousin's. She owed me a favor, and it's gorgeous. You'll look like $1 million. Serena sighed. Even if I wanted to go, which I don't, what's the point? To let rich people gawk at me. The point is to show them exactly who Serena Miles is, the woman who didn't need their money to be amazing. Something stirred in Serena. Pride, maybe, or defiance. They fired me, Maya, without warning, without references. So show them what they lost. Hold your head high. Serena glanced at her reflection in the mirror. She wasn't the young girl who'd once worked for the Thorns anymore. She was a woman who'd faced hardship and survived, who'd cared for her father until his last breath, who worked 2 jobs without complaint. Okay, she finally said. I'll go. The night of the gala arrived. Elijah found himself checking the entrance more often than he cared to admit. Would she come? Part of him hoped she wouldn't, but another part, a part he'd buried long ago, desperately wanted to see her. His mother cornered him by the champagne fountain. She's not coming, Elijah. People like her don't belong in places like this. Before he could respond, a murmur swept through the ballroom. Heads turned. Conversations halted. Elijah followed the collective gaze to the entrance. And there she was. Serena Miles stood in the doorway, a vision in deep blue. Her hair was swept up elegantly, revealing the graceful neck he remembered from childhood. But it was her eyes that caught him, confident, clear, and somehow both familiar and entirely new. The girl who had once worn simple clothes and tied her hair back with a ribbon was gone. In her place stood a woman who radiated quiet strength and undeniable beauty. Elijah couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This wasn't what he'd expected. He'd thought she'd look out of place, uncomfortable. Instead, she commanded the room without saying a word. Beside him, his mother stiffened. I'll have security. Don't you dare, Elijah warned, his voice low. She was invited. Serena stepped into the ballroom, her head held high. Several guests immediately approached her, intrigued by the newcomer who carried herself like royalty. Elijah watched as she smiled and chatted, completely at ease. How was that possible? The Serena he remembered had been warm but shy. This woman was confident, poised. Who is she? Asked Richard Kent, one of their biggest investors, coming to stand beside Elijah. An old friend, Elijah managed to say. Introduce me. Elijah felt an unexpected stab of jealousy. Maybe later. He needed to approach her himself first, but his feet felt rooted to the floor. What would he say? What could he say? Across the room, Serena felt his gaze. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. In his eyes she saw surprise, and something else, something that made her heart beat faster. She excused herself from the small group that had gathered around her and made her way toward him. Each step was deliberate, unhurried. Elijah watched her approach, aware that every eye in the room was on them, on her. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to have the upper hand, to show her what she'd missed out on. Instead, she was the star of his own gala. When she reached him, Serena smiled, a small, composed smile that revealed nothing of her inner thoughts. Hello, Elijah, she said, her voice exactly as he remembered, yet somehow deeper, richer. "Serena," he managed. "You came. You invited me." A simple response, but loaded with unspoken questions. Why, after all these years? Before he could form a reply, his mother appeared at his side. "Ms. Miles," Victoria said coldly. "What a surprise." "Mrs. Thorne," Serena nodded politely. "Thank you for having me. I wasn't aware you were on the guest list." "I invited her," Elijah said firmly. Victoria's smile was tight. "How thoughtful. If you'll excuse us, Elijah has people to meet." But Elijah didn't move. "Actually, I'd like to catch up with Serena." He offered his arm to Serena, a direct challenge to his mother. After a moment's hesitation, Serena took it. As he led her away, he felt the warmth of her hand on his arm. A rush of memories flooded back. Her helping him with homework, teaching him to ride a bike, holding him when he cried after his grandfather's death. The one person who had ever truly cared for him. "You look different," he said, as they reached a quieter corner. Serena raised an eyebrow. "It's been 13 years, Elijah. I know, He struggled to find the right words. "Why did you come?" Her eyes held his, unflinching. "I almost didn't, but then I realized something." "What?" "I was your protector once," she said quietly. "Now I protect my peace." Her words hit him like a physical blow. There was no anger in them, no bitterness, just truth. He wanted to say something, to explain, to defend himself, but what could he say? He'd let her go, had never reached out, not once in all these years. "Serena, But before he could finish, Richard Kent appeared again. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your lovely friend, Elijah?" Elijah wanted to tell him to get lost, but years of business training kicked in. "Richard, this is Serena Miles. Serena, Richard Kent, one of our investors." "Enchanted," Richard said, taking Serena's hand. "How do you know our young hotel magnate?" Serena smiled. "I used to take care of him when he was a boy." "She was much more than that," Elijah found himself saying. "She was the only person in this room who ever really knew me." Richard looked between them, sensing the tension. "Well, Ms. Miles, would you do me the honor of a dance?" Before Elijah could object, Serena nodded. "I'd be delighted." As Richard led her to the dance floor, Elijah felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Loss. The same feeling he'd had when he came home from school one day to find Serena gone. No goodbye, no explanation. He watched as she danced with Richard, graceful and at ease. Other guests were watching too, wondering who this mysterious woman was that had captured everyone's attention. His mother appeared at his side again. "I hope you're satisfied, Elijah. You've caused quite the scene." "No, Mother. You caused a scene 13 years ago when you fired the one person who actually cared about me." Victoria's face hardened. "She was getting too close. You were becoming dependent on her. I was a child. You were a thorn. Thorns don't show weakness, don't need anyone." Elijah looked at his mother, really looked at her. The perfect hair, the designer dress, the cold eyes. Was this what success looked like? Was this what he had become? Across the room, Serena laughed at something Richard said. The sound hit Elijah like a forgotten melody. How long had it been since he'd heard genuine laughter? "She doesn't belong here," Victoria insisted. But looking at Serena now, Elijah wasn't so sure. Maybe it was the rest of them who didn't belong, who had forgotten how to be real. The dance ended, and Richard led Serena to the bar. Elijah saw his chance. He needed to talk to her alone. To explain what? He wasn't even sure. He just knew he couldn't let her walk away again. Not without understanding why seeing her still hurt after all these years. Not without knowing if she ever thought of him too. He made his way toward her, determined to find out. Elijah reached Serena just as Richard was being called away by another guest. "Would you like to step out onto the terrace?" Elijah asked. "It's a bit quieter there." Serena hesitated, then nodded. "Lead the way." The terrace overlooked the glittering Manhattan skyline. The night air was cool, a welcome relief from the crowded ballroom. "You've done well for yourself," Serena said, breaking the silence. "CEO of Thorne Hotels. I saw it in the papers. And you? I hear you work at a community center and at Mercy Hospital. 2 jobs. Elijah shifted uncomfortably. "Is that by choice?" "Not everyone has choices, Elijah. Some of us just do what we need to do." The implied criticism stung. "I didn't ask you here to argue." "Why did you ask me here?" Serena turned to face him directly. After 13 years of silence, why now? Elijah hadn't prepared for such a direct question. "I was curious." "Curious," she repeated, her voice flat. "Well, now you've seen me, mystery solved." She turned to go, but he caught her arm gently. Serena, wait. That's not the whole truth. Something in his voice made her pause. Then what is? I don't know, he admitted. When I saw your name, something just... I had to see you again. To see how far I'd fallen? No, to see if you were happy. To see if... He stopped, unsure how to continue. Serena's eyes softened slightly. If what? If you ever thought about us. About the time we spent together. A small, sad smile touched her lips. Us? There was never an us, Elijah. I was the help. You were the boss's son. You were more than that, and you know it. Was I? Then why didn't you ever try to find me? After your mother fired me without warning, without even letting me say goodbye. Where were you? The accusation hung in the air between them. Elijah had no good answer. He'd been 16, hurt and angry, but he'd also been a coward. I was wrong, he finally said. I should have looked for you. Serena hadn't expected that. An apology from a thorn was rarer than snow in July. Before she could respond, the terrace doors opened. A photographer from a society magazine approached. Mr. Thorne, could I get a photo for our gala coverage? Elijah wanted to refuse, but years of public relations training took over. Of course, the photographer gestured to Serena. And your lovely date. She's not my... Elijah began. An old friend, Serena cut in smoothly. And I'd prefer to stay out of the photos, thank you. The photographer looked disappointed, but took several shots of Elijah alone before retreating. Not looking to be famous? Elijah asked with a slight smile. I value my privacy, something I learned working for your family. The mention of his family sobered him. My mother was wrong to fire you the way she did. Yes, she was, Serena agreed simply. But it's ancient history now. Is it? You seem angry still. Not angry, just clear-eyed. A waiter appeared with champagne. Elijah took 2 glasses, offering one to Serena. She accepted it, but didn't drink. Why did she do it after all this time? I still don't know. Elijah sighed. She said you were getting too close, that I was becoming too attached. And that was a bad thing? For a lonely boy to have someone who cared? In my mother's world? Yes. He took a sip of champagne. Thorns don't need anyone. We don't show weakness. We don't feel. That's a terrible way to live. It's the only way I know. Something in his voice, a hidden vulnerability, reminded Serena of the boy she'd once known. The child who'd curl up with a book in her lap, who'd bring her wildflowers from the garden, who'd cry only when he thought no one could see. That's not true, she said softly. You weren't always like this. Maybe not, but people change. Some things don't change, Elijah. The things that make us who we are. He looked at her then, really looked at her. In the moonlight, she was even more beautiful than he remembered. But it wasn't just her appearance that struck him. It was the quiet strength in her eyes, the dignity she carried like a crown. You seem different, he said. 13 years will do that. No, it's more than time. You seem stronger, more confident. Serena smiled slightly. Life has a way of either breaking you or forging you. I chose not to break. Tell me, he said suddenly. What happened after you left us? Serena leaned against the terrace railing. Your mother made sure I couldn't get another position with any family of status. No references, you see. I worked retail for a while, then went back to school, studied nursing. You became a nurse. Almost. Then my father got sick, cancer. I had to drop out to care for him. I'm sorry, Elijah said and meant it. Is he? He passed 3 years ago. The medical bills took everything. I had to start over. Elijah felt a stab of shame. While he'd been climbing the corporate ladder, living in luxury, she'd been struggling. And yet there was no self-pity in her voice, just matter-of-fact acceptance. And now, 2 jobs. The hospital pays the rent. The community center, that's where my heart is. I work with kids who remind me of you sometimes. Of me? How? Lost, lonely, needing someone to see them, really see them. Her words hit him hard. Had he been so transparent as a child? Had she seen through all the Thorne family armor to the lonely boy beneath? I wasn't lost, he protested weakly. Weren't you? A house full of people and not one who really knew you, except maybe me. Inside the ballroom, the orchestra began a new song. A slow, romantic melody drifted out to the terrace. Dance with me, Elijah said suddenly. Serena looked surprised. What? Dance with me, please. After a moment's hesitation, she set down her glass and stepped toward him. Elijah took her in his arms, careful to maintain a respectful distance. But even that slight contact, his hand at her waist, hers on his shoulder, sent a current through him. They moved slowly to the music, neither speaking. It was Serena who finally broke the silence. "Why did you really invite me tonight, Elijah?" He could have lied, could have given some polite, empty answer. But something about the night, about her, made him want to be honest for once. "I wanted to show you I'd succeeded, that I'd become important. I wanted to impress me, or to make me feel small?" The question caught him off guard. "I don't know. Both, maybe." She stopped dancing, her eyes searching his. "At least you're honest. Does that count for something?" "It's a start." The music continued, but they remained still, caught in a moment. Neither had anticipated. "How you were the only one who ever called me sweetheart," Elijah said softly. "Did you know that? Not my mother, not any of the other nannies. Just you." Something flickered in Serena's eyes. A memory, perhaps, or pain. "You were a sweet boy," she said, "before they taught you not to be." The terrace doors opened again, breaking the moment. Victoria Thorne stood there, her face a mask of controlled fury. "Elijah, the Andersons are asking for you. They're considering investing in the Dubai property. I'll be there in a moment, Mother." Victoria's gaze slid to Serena, cold and dismissive. "I see some things never change, Ms. Miles. Still overstepping your boundaries." Serena straightened, her dignity intact. "Good evening, Mrs. Thorne. Your son and I were just catching up." "Yes, well, he has actual guests to attend to now." Elijah felt a flash of anger. "Mother, Serena is my guest. A mistake I hope you won't repeat." Victoria turned and walked back inside, leaving the air crackling with tension. "I should go," Serena said quietly. "No, please don't let her chase you away. She's not, but I have an early shift tomorrow." Elijah wanted to protest, to ask her to stay, but he had no right. "At least let me call you a car. I can manage the subway. Please, it's late." After a moment she nodded. "All right, thank you." As they walked back through the ballroom, Elijah was acutely aware of the eyes following them, his mother watching with disapproval, Richard Kent with open admiration for Serena, the other guests curious about the beautiful woman who'd captured everyone's attention. At the entrance, Elijah instructed the doorman to call for his private car. While they waited, an awkward silence fell between them. "Thank you for coming," Elijah finally said. "It meant a lot to me." "Did it?" Serena asked, genuinely curious. "Yes, more than I expected." The car arrived and Elijah walked her out. Before she got in, he gathered his courage. Could I call you sometime?" Serena hesitated. "Why?" "To talk. Maybe over coffee or dinner." "Elijah, we're from different worlds, we always were. But for a while we shared one. Don't you remember?" Of course she remembered. The bedtime stories, the scraped knees she'd kissed better, the way he'd cling to her during thunderstorms, the little boy who'd once whispered, "I love you, Serena," when he thought she was asleep. "I remember," she said softly. "But that was a long time ago. It doesn't have to be just a memory." She studied him, as if trying to see past the expensive suit and practiced charm to the boy she once knew. "One coffee," she finally said. "That's all I'm promising." Elijah felt a rush of unexpected joy. "I'll take it." He handed her his business card. "My personal number is on the back." Serena took it, tucking it into her purse. "Good night, Elijah." "Good night, Serena." He watched as the car pulled away, carrying her back to a life so different from his own. But for the first time in years, he felt something he'd forgotten was possible. Hope. The next morning, Elijah woke to dozens of missed calls and messages. The gala had been a success by all accounts, but that wasn't what had everyone talking. It was Serena. Photos had surfaced online. Elijah and Serena on the terrace, standing close. The caption read, "Hotel Heir Elijah Thorne with mystery woman at annual gala." His phone rang. His mother. "Have you seen the tabloids?" she demanded without preamble. "Good morning to you too, Mother. This is not a joke, Elijah. Who is this woman to you?" "I told you, an old friend. Friends don't look at each other the way you two were looking in those photos." Elijah pulled up the images on his tablet. He hadn't realized they'd been photographed during their private moment. But there it was, the two of them, caught in what looked like an intimate conversation. And his mother was right about one thing. The way he was looking at Serena was revealing. "It's nothing," he said, not entirely convinced himself. "See that it stays that way. The board wouldn't approve of you consorting with the help." "Ex-help," Elijah corrected. "And the board doesn't dictate my personal life. Everything you do reflects on Thorne Hotels. Remember that." After hanging up, Elijah stared at the photos again. There was something about the way Serena carried herself, a natural grace that made her stand out even among the wealthy elite at the gala. He found himself reaching for his phone, wanting to call her, but it was too soon. She'd said coffee, not breakfast, the next day. He needed to give her space. Instead, he headed to the office, trying to focus on work. But memories kept intruding. Serena reading him stories, teaching him to tie his shoes, wiping away his tears after a nightmare. The one person who had ever truly seen him. Serena's morning started early, as usual, but as she got ready for her shift at the community center, her mind kept returning to the previous night, to Elijah. He'd changed so much, yet in some ways, not at all. She could still see glimpses of the boy she'd known in the man he'd become, the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Girl, you're all over social media. Call me." Serena frowned. What was Maya talking about? A quick search revealed the answer. Photos from the gala, including several of her with Elijah. The comments were a mix of curiosity about her identity and speculation about her relationship with the hotel Heir. "Great," she muttered. This was exactly what she didn't need. Her phone rang. "Maya, you didn't tell me you were dating Elijah Thorne," Maya exclaimed without greeting. "I'm not, it was just a gala." "That's not what these pictures suggest. You two look intimate." "We were just talking." "And I'm the Queen of England." Serena sighed. "It's complicated, Maya." "I'm listening." "He was just a kid I looked after, a long time ago. A kid who grew up to be one of New York's most eligible bachelors, and who clearly still has a thing for you." "He doesn't have a thing for me. He's just, I don't know, curious maybe about the past." "Well, from these photos, I'd say his curiosity looks a lot like attraction." Serena glanced at the clock. "I have to go. I'll call you later." At the community center, Serena tried to focus on her work, but her phone kept buzzing with notifications as more people recognized her from the photos. By lunchtime, even her co-workers had seen them. "Is it true?" asked Denise, cornering her in the break room. "Are you dating Elijah Thorne?" "No," Serena said firmly. "We're old acquaintances, that's all." "Well, acquaintance or not, you sure made an impression. That dress was fire." Serena smiled despite herself. "Thanks to your cousin." As the day wore on, Serena found her thoughts returning to Elijah, to the way he'd looked at her on the terrace, to his request to see her again. One coffee, she'd said. Just one. But was that wise? The Thornes had hurt her once before. Victoria had made sure Serena couldn't work in their circles again, forcing her to start over. And yet, the boy she'd known had been kind, sensitive. Nothing like the cold, ambitious family he'd been born into. Was that boy still in there somewhere? Behind the expensive suits and practiced charm? By evening, as Serena prepared for her hospital shift, she'd made a decision. She pulled out Elijah's card and sent a text. "Coffee. Sunday at 2, Rosie's Cafe on 9th. His reply came almost immediately. "I'll be there." The rest of the week passed in a blur for Elijah. Board meetings, property inspections, endless calls and emails. But underneath it all, a current of anticipation. Sunday, 2 o'clock, Rosie's Cafe. He found himself counting down the days, then the hours, which was ridiculous. He was Elijah Thorne, CEO of a billion-dollar company. He didn't get nervous about coffee with a woman. Except this wasn't just any woman, this was Serena. When Sunday finally arrived, Elijah spent far too long deciding what to wear. A suit seemed too formal for a cafe, but he rarely wore anything else. Finally, he settled on dark jeans and a cashmere sweater, casual by his standards, but still put together. Rosie's Cafe was nothing like the upscale establishments he usually frequented. It was small, cozy, with mismatched furniture and the rich aroma of fresh coffee, the kind of place he would normally drive past without noticing. Serena was already there, seated at a corner table. She wore simple jeans and a blue blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders. No makeup, no jewelry. And yet to Elijah, she was the most striking woman in the room. She looked up as he approached, her expression guarded. "You came," she said, as if she'd half expected him not to. "I said I would." He sat across from her, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands. Her waitress approached and they both ordered coffee. When she left, an awkward silence fell between them. "So," Elijah finally said, "how was your week? Busy? Yours?" "The same." More silence. This was going nowhere. "I'm sorry about the photos," Elijah said suddenly. "I didn't know we were being photographed." Serena shrugged. "It's fine, though my co-workers now think I'm secretly dating a billionaire. And that bothers you?" "The attention bothers me. I value my privacy." The coffee arrived, giving them both a moment to regroup. "You know," Serena said, stirring sugar into her cup, You never answered my question at the gala. Which one? Why you never tried to find me? After I was gone. Elijah stared into his coffee. I did, actually, at first. Serena looked up, surprised. You did? I asked my mother where you'd gone. She said you'd found a better position with another family, that you'd left without saying goodbye because you didn't really care about me. Just the paycheck. Serena's eyes widened. That's not true. I loved... She stopped, correcting herself. I cared about you very much. The slip wasn't lost on Elijah. Had she been about to say she loved him? I know that now, he said. But at 16, I believed her. I was hurt, angry. I thought you'd abandoned me like everyone else. I would never have left without saying goodbye. Your mother fired me with no warning. Told me to be out within the hour. Why? What happened? Serena hesitated. I'm not entirely sure. There was an incident the day before. You were sick with the flu. Your mother was hosting some important dinner, and you were upset she wouldn't cancel to be with you. Elijah remembered. He'd been running a high fever, feeling miserable. You stayed with me all night, he said slowly, reading to me, putting cold compresses on my forehead. Serena nodded. In the morning, your mother found us. You were asleep with your head in my lap. I think she saw something in the way I looked at you. Something that threatened her. What do you mean? I loved you, Elijah. Not in any inappropriate way, but I loved you like you were my own. And I think your mother could see that you loved me back, and that was unacceptable to her. The revelation hit Elijah hard. All these years, he'd believed a lie, had carried the hurt of what he thought was Serena's abandonment. I'm sorry, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I should have tried harder to find you. You were just a boy, and then I wasn't. I grew up, could have looked for you as an adult. Why didn't you? Elijah considered the question. I think I was afraid. Of what? Of finding out it was true, that you really didn't care. Serena reached across the table and, after a moment's hesitation, placed her hand over his. I cared, Elijah, more than you know. The touch of her hand on his sent warmth spreading through him. For a moment neither spoke, letting the truth of her words settle between them. What happens now? Elijah finally asked. I don't know. We're still from different worlds. Do they have to be separate? Our worlds. Serena withdrew her hand. Your mother would never accept me in your life. I'm not 16 anymore. I don't need her approval. Don't you? She's still on your board. Still has influence over your company. Elijah frowned. You think I care more about the company than... He stopped, unsure how to finish that sentence. Than what? Than reconnecting with someone who once meant a great deal to me. Serena studied him, as if trying to see past his words to the truth beneath. One step at a time, she finally said. This is coffee, let's not complicate it yet. Elijah nodded, though part of him wanted to argue, wanted to tell her that it was already complicated. Had been from the moment he saw her name and added it to the guest list, but she was right. They needed time to get to know each other again, to see if the connection they'd once shared could be rebuilt. So, he said, forcing a lighter tone, tell me about your work at the community center. As Serena began to speak, her face lit up. She told him about the after-school programs she ran, about the children she mentored, about the difference she was trying to make in lives much like her own had once been. Elijah found himself captivated, not just by her words, but by the passion behind them. This was a woman who had faced hardship, but hadn't been broken by it, who had found purpose in helping others. When was the last time he'd felt that kind of purpose? Their coffee grew cold as they talked, the afternoons slipping away unnoticed. Serena shared stories of her father, of her struggle to care for him while keeping them afloat financially. Elijah spoke of taking over the company after his father's stroke, of the pressure to live up to the Thorn name. You know, Serena said thoughtfully, you always were more like your father than your mother. That's not much of a compliment. My father was as cold and driven as she is. Not always. Not with you when you were very small, before he got so wrapped up in the business. Elijah looked surprised. I don't remember that. You were too young, but he used to come home early sometimes just to read you a story before bed. Your mother hated it, said he was making you soft. The revelation stunned Elijah. His memories of his father were of a stern, distant figure, always working, always pushing Elijah to be better, stronger, more ambitious. Are you sure? I wouldn't make up something like that. Elijah sat back, processing this new information. Had his father once been different? More like the man Elijah himself sometimes wished he could be. Outside, the afternoon sun was beginning to fade. Serena glanced at her watch. I should go. I have the night shift at the hospital. Elijah felt a stab of disappointment. Already? It's been 3 hours, Elijah. He blinked in surprise. It hadn't felt nearly that long. As they stood to leave, Elijah asked the question he'd been holding back. "Can I see you again?" Serena hesitated. "I don't know if that's wise. One dinner. Next weekend." She looked at him, conflict clear in her eyes. "Elijah, please. There's so much more I want to know. About you. About us." "There is no us, Elijah. There never was. There could be." The words hung between them, a possibility neither had anticipated when this day began. Finally, Serena nodded. "One dinner, but somewhere quiet. No photographers this time." Elijah smiled, feeling a weight lift from his chest. "I know just the place." Outside the cafe, they paused on the sidewalk. The easy intimacy of their conversation seemed to evaporate in the open air, leaving uncertainty in its place. "Well," Serena said, "thank you for the coffee. Thank you for agreeing to see me." She nodded, taking a small step back. "Goodbye, Elijah. Until next weekend," he corrected gently. As he watched her walk away, Elijah felt something stir inside him, something he'd thought long dead, a longing for connection, for the kind of warmth and understanding only Serena had ever shown him. But along with it came fear. What was he doing? She was right. They were from different worlds. His mother would never accept her. The board would question his judgment, and yet, for the first time in years, he found himself not caring what they thought. All he knew was that he needed to see Serena again, to discover if the boy she'd once known still existed somewhere inside him, and if she could help him find his way back. The week crawled by for Elijah. Board meetings, property tours, contract negotiations, all the things that had once consumed him now felt like distractions, obstacles keeping him from Saturday evening, from Serena. "You seem distracted," observed James, his CFO, during a budget review. "Just tired," Elijah lied. "Let's continue." But the truth was, he couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way she'd looked at him in the cafe, as if searching for the boy she once knew, about the warmth of her hand on his, however brief. He'd chosen the restaurant carefully, not one of the trendy hotspots where he was usually photographed, but a small Italian place in the West Village, family-owned, intimate, with private booths and soft lighting, a place where they could talk without being observed or interrupted. When Saturday finally arrived, Elijah was uncharacteristically nervous. He changed his tie 3 times before settling on a dark blue that reminded him of the dress Serena had worn to the gala. He arrived early, securing the most private booth in the back. The owner, Carlo, greeted him personally. Elijah had been coming here for years, one of the few places where he could eat in peace. "A special guest tonight, Mr. Thorne?" Carlo asked with a knowing smile. "An old friend," Elijah replied. "Very special." Serena arrived precisely on time. She wore a simple green dress that complemented her dark skin, her hair loose around her shoulders. Several diners turned to look as she passed, not because they recognized her, but simply because she was striking. Elijah stood as she approached. "You look beautiful." Serena smiled, a touch of self-consciousness in her eyes. "Thank you. This place is lovely." They settled into the booth, and Carlo himself brought them wine. After he left, Serena glanced around appreciatively. "How did you find this place? It doesn't seem like your usual style." "My father used to bring me here," Elijah said, "before he got sick. It was one of the few places we'd go, just the two of us." "That's surprisingly sentimental of you." "I'm not completely heartless," he said with a small smile. "I never thought you were heartless, just guarded." Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment, neither spoke. There was an ease between them that belied their years apart, as if some essential connection had remained intact despite everything. "I've been thinking about what you said," Elijah finally broke the silence, "about my father, about how he used to read to me. You don't remember?" "Not really. My clearest memories of him are from later. Always working, always pushing me to be better." Serena nodded thoughtfully. "People change, or maybe the world changes them. Like it changed me? Did it? Change you?" Elijah considered the question. "I'd like to think not. But sometimes I look in the mirror and see my mother looking back." The vulnerability in his admission surprised them both. Elijah couldn't remember the last time he'd been so honest with anyone. Their food arrived, handmade pasta with seafood for her, osso buco for him. As they ate, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Childhood memories, books they'd read, places they'd been. "Do you remember that summer at the Hamptons house?" Serena asked. "When you were about 12, you found that injured seagull." Elijah smiled at the memory. "You helped me nurse it back to health. Mother was furious when she found out we were keeping a dirty bird in the pool house. But you stood up to her, told her the bird needed us, and you backed me up, said it was an educational experience. They both laughed, the sound warm and genuine. You were a good kid, Elijah, Serena said softly. Kind-hearted, brave when it mattered. What happened to that kid, I wonder? He's still in there. I see glimpses of him sometimes. Their eyes met again, and Elijah felt something shift between them, a deepening of the connection they'd been rebuilding. After dinner, neither seemed ready for the evening to end. There's a nice place for dessert around the corner, Elijah suggested. Or we could walk for a bit. It's a beautiful night. Heir walk sounds nice. The streets of the West Village were lively but not crowded. They strolled side by side, close but not touching, past quaint storefronts and brownstones with window boxes. This is a different New York than the one I usually see, Elijah commented. You mean there's more to the city than luxury hotels and office towers? Serena teased. Apparently so. Who knew? She laughed, the sound warming him more than the spring evening. They found a small park and sat on a bench, watching people pass by. Young couples holding hands, families with children, elderly neighbors catching up. Tell me something, Serena said after a comfortable silence. Are you happy, Elijah? The question caught him off guard. Happy? I'm successful. Respected. That's not what I asked. He looked away. I don't know. I never really think about it. Maybe you should. Are you? Happy? Serena considered the question. Not exactly. But I'm at peace with my life. I make a difference with the kids at the center. That means something. And at the hospital? That's just to pay the bills. Elijah felt a pang of guilt. Here he was, with more money than he could spend in a lifetime, while she worked 2 jobs just to get by. I could help you, you know, he said before thinking. Financially. As soon as the words left his mouth, he knew it was the wrong thing to say. Serena stiffened beside him. I don't need your charity, Elijah. It wouldn't be charity, it would be, what? Paying for my company, for my time? No, that's not what I meant at all. Serena stood up. I think it's time I went home. Elijah rose quickly. Serena, please, I'm sorry, that came out all wrong. She looked at him, her expression a mix of hurt and disappointment. Did it? Or is that how you see me? Someone you can buy? Never. I respect you too much for that. Then respect that I've made my own way, that I don't need to be rescued, especially not by a thorn. The words stung, but Elijah knew he deserved them. You're right. I was out of line. Serena's expression softened slightly. It's getting late. I should go. At least let me get you a car. The subway is fine. Please. It would make me feel better. After a moment, she nodded. All right. As they walked to the street to wait for the car Elijah had summoned, an awkward silence fell between them. He searched for a way to repair the damage he'd done. I had a good time tonight, he finally said, despite my thoughtless comment. I did too, Serena admitted. Until then, can we try again? Maybe next weekend? Serena hesitated. I don't know, Elijah. Maybe this was a mistake. It wasn't. At least it doesn't have to be. The car arrived, saving her from having to answer. As she reached for the door, Elijah gently touched her arm. Serena, please. She looked at him, really looked at him, as if trying to see past the man to the boy she once knew. I'll think about it, she finally said. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Elijah watched the car pull away, a mixture of hope and anxiety churning inside him. He'd messed up, let his thorn upbringing show through, the automatic assumption that money could fix any problem. But money wasn't what Serena needed from him. The question was, what did she need, and could he give it to her? Serena's apartment felt especially small and quiet after the evening with Elijah. She kicked off her shoes and sank onto the worn sofa, replaying their conversation in her mind. She'd been enjoying herself more than she'd expected to. There was something about Elijah, a vulnerability beneath the polished exterior, that called to her, reminded her of the boy who'd once looked up at her with such trust and affection. And then he'd offered her money. She knew he hadn't meant it as an insult, but it stung nonetheless, highlighting the vast gap between their worlds. To him, writing a check was nothing. To her, accepting it would mean surrendering something vital, her hard-won independence. Her phone buzzed with a text. Maya. How was the hot date with Mr. Moneybags? Serena sighed and typed back, it wasn't a date, and it was fine, until he offered to solve my financial problems. The phone rang almost immediately. He did what? Maya demanded. It wasn't like that. He was trying to be kind in his way. By throwing money at you. Girl, please. He doesn't know any other way, Maya. That's how he was raised. Money is how his family shows everything. Maya was quiet for a moment. You're defending him. I'm trying to understand him. Mm-hmm. And how's that going? Serena leaned back, closing her eyes. It's complicated, because you still have feelings for him. I never had feelings for him. He was a child I took care of. And now he's a man, a very attractive, wealthy man who's clearly interested in you. Serena couldn't deny the truth in Maya's words. There was something between her and Elijah, something new and yet familiar, like an echo of their past relationship, but changed, transformed into something she wasn't sure she was ready to name. Even if that were true, Serena said carefully, we're too different. His mother would never accept me. The society he moves in would never accept me. Since when do you care what rich white folks think? I don't, but he has to live in that world. Maybe he doesn't want to. Not without you. The words hit Serena harder than she expected. Was that what Elijah wanted? To bring her into his world? Or did he just want to play with fire? To flirt with the idea of someone so different from the women his mother undoubtedly pushed his way? I need to be careful, Maya. I've been hurt before. By him. By his family. By his world. After hanging up, Serena got ready for bed, her mind still on Elijah. On the way, he'd looked at her across the table. The genuine interest in his eyes when she spoke about her work. The vulnerability in his voice when he'd asked if they could try again. Despite her reservations, she found herself hoping he'd call. Sunday morning found Elijah at his father's bedside in the family mansion. Howard Thorne had survived his stroke 2 years ago, but was left partially paralyzed and with limited speech. Once a towering figure in the business world, he was now a shadow of his former self. Elijah visited every Sunday without fail, even though his father rarely seemed to recognize him. The Dubai project is moving forward, Elijah reported, as he always did, updating his father on the business as if the older man could still offer advice. We've secured the permits and broken ground. Howard stared out the window, his once sharp eyes cloudy and distant. I had dinner with Serena last night, Elijah continued, surprising himself with the admission. Serena Miles. Do you remember her? She worked for us years ago. At the mention of Serena's name, Howard's eyes shifted, focusing on Elijah with unusual clarity. You do remember, Elijah said softly. Howard made a sound, not quite a word, but a clear attempt to communicate. What is it, Dad? What are you trying to say? The nurse, Helen, who had been discreetly arranging medications nearby, stepped closer. He's been more responsive lately. The therapy seems to be helping. Howard made the sound again, his gaze intent on Elijah. I think, Helen said carefully, he might be trying to say Serena. Elijah looked at his father with new eyes. You do remember her? Howard moved his functional hand slightly, as if reaching for something. What is it, Dad? What about Serena? But the moment of clarity passed, and Howard's gaze drifted back to the window. Elijah stayed a while longer, though his father showed no further signs of engagement. As he was preparing to leave, Helen walked him to the door. Has he mentioned Serena before? Elijah asked. Helen hesitated. Not exactly mentioned, but there's a photo he keeps by his bed. Sometimes I find him holding it. A photo? May I see it? Helen led him back to his father's room and carefully extracted a worn photograph from the bedside drawer. It showed a much younger Howard with Elijah as a small child, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And there beside them was Serena, barely more than a teenager herself, smiling broadly. I've never seen this, Elijah said, stunned. He keeps it hidden. Your mother, she tried to take it away once. He became quite agitated. Elijah studied the photo. His father had his arm around Serena's shoulders in a gesture that seemed almost paternal. They were at the beach, all 3 of them laughing at something off camera. May I borrow this? I'll bring it back next week. Helen nodded. Just don't let Mrs. Thorne know it upsets her. As Elijah drove away from the mansion, his mind raced. Why would his father keep a photo of Serena? Why would it upset his mother so much? There was more to the story than he knew, and he was determined to find out what it was. Monday morning brought a fresh crisis at Thorne Hotels. A key investor was threatening to pull out of the Dubai project unless certain conditions were met. Elijah spent the day in emergency meetings, his personal concerns temporarily pushed aside. It wasn't until late afternoon that he had a moment to breathe. He sat in his office, loosening his tie, when his assistant knocked. Your mother is here. Victoria Thorne swept in before Elijah could respond. As always, she was impeccably dressed, not a hair out of place despite the spring rain outside. I just left the board meeting, she said without preamble. There are concerns. About Dubai? I've been handling it all day. Not about Dubai. About you. Elijah raised an eyebrow. Me. Your association with that woman has raised eyebrows. That woman has a name. Serena. Victoria waved a dismissive hand. Whatever she's calling herself these days, she's becoming a liability. To whom, the company or to you? Don't be dramatic, Elijah. The board is concerned about your judgment. First, you invite her to the gala, causing a scene. Then you're photographed having dinner with her in public. Elijah stiffened. We were photographed at dinner. Where? Victoria pulled out her tablet and showed him a gossip site. There they were, Elijah and Serena, leaving the Italian restaurant. The caption read, Hotel Heir's mystery woman identified, former employee of Thorne family. How did they find us? Elijah demanded. That place is off the radar. Nothing is off the radar for the press, Elijah. You know that. He did know, but he'd been careful. Had chosen a place specifically for its privacy. Unless, did you have me followed? Victoria's expression didn't change. Don't be absurd. But Elijah knew his mother, knew the length she would go to protect the Thorne name and to control him. You did, didn't you? You had someone follow me. I was concerned. This obsession with a former servant. She wasn't a servant. She was... Elijah stopped, unsure how to describe what Serena had been to him. Family? Friend? Something else entirely? She was what? Victoria pressed. What is she to you, Elijah? He met his mother's cold gaze. She was the only person in this family who ever showed me real kindness. Who saw me as more than just a Thorne heir. Victoria's face hardened. You're being ridiculous. She was paid to look after you. It was her job to be kind. Is that how you see it? That real care can only be bought? I see a grown man with an unhealthy attachment to his former nanny. It's embarrassing, Elijah, and it needs to stop. Elijah stood, anger building inside him. Or what? Or the board might question your fitness to lead. The threat hung in the air between them. Elijah knew it wasn't idle. His mother still wielded considerable influence with several key board members. You would really do that? Try to remove me from my own company because of who I choose to spend time with? I would do whatever necessary to protect this family and its legacy. Victoria moved toward the door, then paused. Think carefully about your next move, Elijah. There's a lot at stake. After she left, Elijah sat heavily in his chair. His mother's threat was clear, but her motives remained murky. This felt like more than just class prejudice or concern about appearances. There was something about Serena specifically that threatened Victoria, something connected to the photo his father kept hidden. He pulled out his phone and stared at Serena's number. He'd promised himself he wouldn't call until she'd had time to think about their dinner. But circumstances had changed. Before he could reconsider, he dialed. Elijah, Serena answered, sounding surprised. I need to see you, he said without preamble. It's important. I'm working, both jobs today. When are you free? She hesitated. Not until late, after 11. I'll come to you. Elijah, it's not a good... Please, Serena. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Something in his voice must have convinced her. All right, I'll text you my address. Serena's apartment building in Brooklyn was modest but well-maintained. Elijah felt conspicuous as he parked his Bentley on the street, drawing curious looks from passers-by. It was just after 11, and he was exhausted from the day's crises. But this couldn't wait. Serena buzzed him up to the 3rd floor. When she opened the door, she was still in her hospital scrubs, looking tired but beautiful. This is a surprise, she said, stepping back to let him in. I'm sorry to come so late, but something's happened. Her small apartment was neat and cozy, a stark contrast to the cold opulence of his penthouse. Books lined the walls, and colorful throws brightened the second-hand furniture. It felt like a home. Can I get you something? Tea? I don't have much else. No, thank you. Elijah stood awkwardly in the center of the living room, suddenly unsure how to begin. Serena gestured to the sofa. Sit. You look ready to collapse. He sat, and after a moment she joined him, keeping a careful distance between them. What's happened, Elijah? You sounded urgent on the phone. Instead of answering, he reached into his jacket and pulled out the photograph. Do you remember this? Serena took it, her eyes widening in recognition. Where did you get this? My father keeps it by his bed, hidden from my mother. She stared at the image, a mix of emotions crossing her face. This was at the Hamptons. You were 4, maybe 5. Your father had taken us to the beach while your mother was at some charity luncheon. You looked close with my father. Serena handed the photo back, her expression guarded. Howard was kind to me, unlike your mother. My mother had you followed on Saturday night. There are photos of us online. What? Serena stood up, alarmed. Why would she do that? That's what I'm trying to understand. She threatened me today. Said the board might question my fitness to lead if I continue seeing you. That's extreme. Exactly. Which makes me think there's more to this than just her usual controlling behavior. Elijah leaned forward. Serena, did something happen between you and my parents? Something I don't know about? Serena turned away, moving to the small kitchen area. She filled a kettle and set it on the stove, her back to him. Serena, it was a long time ago, she finally said. It shouldn't matter now. It matters if my mother is threatening my position because of it. It matters if my father keeps a hidden photo of you. Serena sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. She turned to face him. Your father helped me once, when I really needed it. Helped you how? My mother died when I was 14. Dad was struggling, drinking too much, couldn't hold a job. We were about to be evicted from our apartment. Elijah listened, a sense of dread building inside him. Your father found out somehow. He paid our back rent, got my dad into a program, found me the position with your family. That doesn't sound like my father. He was different back then. Before your mother. Before my mother what? Serena looked away. Changed him, I guess. Made him harder, more focused on the business, less on people. Elijah tried to reconcile this version of his father with the cold, demanding man he remembered. But why would that make my mother hate you so much? Serena was quiet for a long moment. I think she was jealous. Of you? But you were just a teenager. Not of me, personally. Of what I represented. Your father's kindness. His humanity. The kettle whistled, giving Serena a reason to turn away again. She busied herself making tea, her back to Elijah. There's more, he said. It wasn't a question. When Serena turned back, her eyes were sad. Your father and I stayed in touch after I was fired. Not often, just occasionally. He wanted to make sure I was okay. He never told me. He couldn't. Your mother, Serena hesitated. Your mother made it clear there would be consequences if he interfered. What kind of consequences? I don't know exactly, but he sent money when my father got sick. Anonymously, but I knew it was him. It helped with the medical bills, at least for a while. Elijah stood, pacing the small living room. So my mother hates you because my father showed you kindness? That seems extreme, yes. But your mother is territorial. The Thorn name, the Thorn legacy, it's everything to her. And you threatened that somehow? Serena set a mug of tea on the coffee table for him, though he'd declined earlier. I represented something outside her control, a connection your father had that she couldn't monitor or influence. Elijah picked up the mug, needing something to do with his hands. And now she sees the same threat with me. Yes, history repeating itself. They fell silent, the implications hanging in the air between them. Elijah sipped the tea, finding comfort in its warmth. She can't control me, he finally said. Not anymore. Can't she? She's threatening your position at the company. Let her try. I own the majority share now. It's not just about legal control, Elijah. It's about influence, perception. The board respects her. So what are you saying? That I should stay away from you, let her win again? Serena sat back down, farther from him this time. I'm saying you need to think carefully about what you want, what's important to you. And if that's you? The words slipped out before he could stop them. Serena's eyes widened in surprise. Is it? She asked softly. Elijah set down the mug. I don't know what this is between us, Serena, but I know I want to find out. I know that when I'm with you, I feel different, more like myself, or maybe more like the person I could have been if things had been different. And if your mother forces you to choose between me and the company, then maybe it's time I found out who Elijah Thorn is without Thorn Hotels. Serena studied him as if trying to gauge his sincerity. That's a big statement from someone who's never been without wealth or status. I know, and honestly, the thought terrifies me. But so does the idea of letting you walk out of my life again. The raw honesty in his voice surprised them both. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of his words filling the small apartment. It's late, Serena finally said, and we're both tired. You should go. Disappointment washed over Elijah. Right, of course. But, she added, there's a small cafe near the community center. They make decent sandwiches. I usually take lunch around one. Hope replaced disappointment. Tomorrow. As Elijah rose to leave, Serena walked him to the door. They stood close in the narrow entryway, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Thank you, Elijah said, for telling me, for everything. We'll figure this out, Serena said softly. Whatever this is, Impulsively, Elijah leaned forward and kissed her cheek. The brief contact sent warmth spreading through him. "Good night, Serena." "Good night, Elijah." As he drove back to Manhattan, Elijah's mind was a whirl of conflicting emotions. Anger at his mother, confusion about his father, and something else, something growing stronger with each encounter with Serena, something that felt dangerously like falling in love. The next day, Elijah arrived at the cafe at 12:45, wanting to be early. He dressed more casually than usual, no suit, just slacks and a button-down shirt. Still too formal for the neighborhood, but an effort at least. The cafe was small and bustling with a diverse lunch crowd. Elijah found a corner table and waited, feeling out of place yet strangely exhilarated. At 1 o'clock precisely, Serena walked in. She wore simple black pants and a turquoise blouse, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Even in such casual clothes, she drew eyes, not because she was trying to, but because of the natural grace and confidence she carried. She spotted him and made her way over, smiling. "You came, of course." He stood to greet her, unsure whether to kiss her cheek again or simply shake her hand. In the end, he did neither, just pulling out her chair. They ordered sandwiches and iced tea. The cafe was noisy enough to provide privacy for their conversation, yet public enough to feel safe. "Have you heard from your mother?" Serena asked once they were settled. "Not yet, but it's only a matter of time." "And you've decided what you'll do if she forces your hand?" Elijah had been thinking about little else since leaving her apartment the night before. "I've been running my father's company for 2 years," he said slowly, "building on his legacy, living up to the Thorn name. But I've never asked myself if it's what I want. And is it? Parts of it. I'm good at the work. I enjoy the challenge. But the politics, the constant scrutiny, the emptiness of it all." He shook his head. "I'm not sure it's worth the cost anymore. What would you do if you weren't CEO of Thorn Hotels?" Elijah smiled ruefully. "I have no idea. That's the terrifying part. Maybe that's not a bad thing, having to discover who you are outside of your family name. Is that what you see when you look at me, Serena? Just the Thorn heir?" She studied him, her gaze direct and honest. "No, I see the boy I knew, the man he's become, and maybe the man he could still be." Her words warmed him more than she could know. "And who is that man? The one I could be? Someone who chooses his own path, who values connection over status, who remembers what it means to be kind. You make it sound simple. It's not. Nothing worth having ever is." Their food arrived, giving Elijah a moment to collect his thoughts. When they began eating, he steered the conversation to lighter topics. Her work at the community center, a book she'd mentioned, a movie they'd both seen recently. It was easy talking with Serena, natural in a way conversations rarely were for him. There was no agenda, no calculation, just two people connecting. "I have to get back soon," Serena said as they finished their meal. "The afternoon program starts at 2. Can I see you tonight, after your shift?" She hesitated. "I don't know if that's wise, Elijah. Things are moving so fast. Just dinner, at your place if you're comfortable with that. I could bring takeout." The offer was deliberately casual, a step back from the intensity of their recent conversations. After a moment's consideration, Serena nodded. "All right, but nothing fancy. Just food and conversation. I promise." As they left the cafe, Elijah walked her back toward the community center. On the busy sidewalk, their hands brushed accidentally. Almost without thinking, he caught her fingers with his. Serena looked down at their joined hands, then up at his face. Instead of pulling away, she allowed the contact, her fingers warm against his. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental. At the entrance to the community center, they paused. Elijah reluctantly released her hand. 7 o'clock, he confirmed. 7 is good. He watched her go inside, a sense of anticipation building within him. For the first time in longer than he could remember, he was looking forward to the evening not out of obligation or business necessity, but simply because he wanted to be with someone, because he wanted to be with Serena. He was so lost in thought that he almost missed the Blacktown car parked across the street, almost missed the familiar figure watching from the back seat, his mother. Their eyes met through the car window. Victoria's face was expressionless, but her message was clear. She knew exactly where he was, who he was with, and she wasn't going to let it go. As her car pulled away, Elijah felt a cold determination settle over him. His mother thought she could control him through fear and manipulation, through threats to his position and status. But she'd made a critical miscalculation. For the first time in his life, Elijah had found something, someone who mattered more than the Thorn name. and he wasn't going to let her go without a fight. Elijah returned to his office with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. If his mother wanted a confrontation, he would be ready. He spent the afternoon making calls, reviewing documents, preparing for what might come. By the time he left to pick up dinner for his evening with Serena, he had a plan. He chose a simple Thai restaurant near her apartment. Nothing extravagant, nothing that would make her uncomfortable, just good food to share. At precisely 7, he knocked on her door. Serena answered, wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. The sight of her, relaxed, natural, beautiful, made his heart skip. "Right on time," she said with a small smile. "I brought dinner as promised." He held up the bags. Nothing fancy, just food. Her apartment felt different this time, warmer, more welcoming. Or maybe it was just his perception that had changed. "I saw my mother today," he said, as they unpacked the food at her small kitchen table. "Outside the community center." Serena froze. She was there? Why? Watching me, watching us. Elijah kept his tone casual, though the encounter had been anything but. "She's escalating. What are you going to do?" "I've spent the afternoon preparing, lining up allies on the board, reviewing my legal position." "You think it will come to that?" "I know my mother. She won't back down easily." He handed Serena a container of pad thai. "But neither will I." They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Then Serena asked the question he'd been expecting. "Why, Elijah? Why risk so much? We barely know each other anymore." He set down his fork, considering his answer carefully. "That's not true. You knew me better than anyone when I was young, and somehow being with you now, it's like you still see that part of me, the part I thought was gone. And that's worth risking your company? Your inheritance? What good is any of it if I'm not happy? If I'm just a puppet dancing to my mother's tune?" Serena studied him, her dark eyes thoughtful. "And what makes you happy, Elijah?" The question was simple, but profound. What did make him happy? He'd never really asked himself that before. "Moments like this," he said honestly. "Being with someone who sees the real me. Not the name or the money or the power. Just me." Something shifted in Serena's expression, a softening, a recognition. "I do see you," she said softly. "I always have." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feelings. Elijah wanted to reach for her hand, to bridge the physical distance as they were bridging the emotional one, but he held back, not wanting to rush. They finished their meal, talking of lighter things, childhood memories, books they'd both read, places they'd like to visit someday. It was easy being with Serena, natural in a way relationships rarely were for Elijah. After dinner, they moved to her small living room. Serena put on soft music and they sat on the sofa, closer than before but still not touching. "Tell me about your father," Elijah said. "You mentioned he passed away a few years ago." Sadness flickered across Serena's face. 3 years in August. Cancer. It was hard, watching him suffer. "You took care of him?" "As best I could. He'd been there for me my whole life, even when things were tough. I couldn't abandon him when he needed me most." "That's why you dropped out of nursing school?" She nodded. "Someone had to be there, and there was only me. No other family. Just a cousin in Chicago. We're not close." Elijah thought about his own family. Wealthy, influential, yet fractured by secrets and control. By comparison, Serena's relationship with her father, though marked by struggle, seemed infinitely richer. "You were lucky," he said, surprising them both, "to have that bond. We didn't have much, but we had each other." Serena's voice was soft with memory. "After Mom died, it was just us against the world, until my father stepped in. That was unexpected. Howard had no reason to help us, but he did." "Why? Do you know?" Serena was quiet for a moment. "He never said exactly, but once when I'd been working for your family about a year, he mentioned that someone had helped him when he was young, that he was just paying it forward." The revelation surprised Elijah. His father had never spoken of hardship, had always presented himself as self-made but privileged. "I never knew that about him." "There's probably a lot you don't know. Your parents were careful about the family image. Too careful. Everything was about appearances, about upholding the Thorne name." "Is that why you never married? Never settled down?" The question caught Elijah off guard. "I guess I never met anyone who felt real, who wanted me for myself, not for what I represented." And now, their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Elijah found himself moving closer, drawn to her like a magnet. "Now I've found someone who knew me before I was CEO, before I built walls. Someone who remembers the boy I was, and seems to like the man I'm becoming. Serena didn't pull away. And who is that man, Elijah, really? I'm still figuring that out, but I know he wants to be worthy of you. The admission hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Serena's eyes softened, and Elijah found himself leaning forward, slowly closing the distance between them. Their first kiss was gentle, a question more than a demand. When Serena responded, her lips warm against his, Elijah felt something unlock inside him. A door, long closed, suddenly open. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed, savoring the moment. I've wanted to do that since the gala, he admitted. Serena smiled. Even though I called you out? Especially because you called me out. No one does that. No one tells me the truth like you do. Is that what you want? The truth? From you? Always. She pulled back slightly, her expression serious. Then here's the truth, Elijah. I care about you, more than I expected to, but I'm afraid. Of what? Of hoping for something that can't last, of stepping into your world only to be pushed out again, of letting myself believe this is real. It is real, he insisted, more real than anything in my life. But your mother doesn't control me, not anymore. As if summoned by his defiance, Elijah's phone rang, his mother's ringtone. Speaking of the devil, he muttered, pulling out his phone. I should take this. Serena nodded, moving away to give him privacy. Elijah answered, steeling himself. Mother, where are you? Victoria demanded without preamble. Out. With her. Her name is Serena. And yes, there's an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. Elijah's grip tightened on the phone. What emergency? Your judgment is being called into question, your fitness to lead. On what grounds? Consorting with a former employee, creating a public spectacle, potentially damaging the Thorn brand. That's ridiculous, and you know it. Nevertheless, the meeting is happening. I suggest you prepare. Her voice hardened. And say goodbye to your little diversion. She won't be welcome in our world. The call ended, leaving Elijah furious. He turned to find Serena watching him, concern etched on her face. Emergency board meeting, he explained. Tomorrow morning. About us? About me. My fitness to lead. He couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. She's making her move. What will you do? Elijah pocketed his phone, a plan forming in his mind. Fight back. With the truth. What truth? All of it. My father's connection to you. Her attempts to control me. Everything. Serena looked alarmed. Elijah, are you sure? That could destroy your relationship with your mother completely. What relationship? She's never seen me as a son, just as a legacy bearer, an extension of the Thorn name. He moved back to Serena, taking her hands in his. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Always. Will you come with me tomorrow to the board meeting? Surprise flashed across her face. Me? Why? Because you're part of this story, and because... He hesitated, then forged ahead. Because I'm stronger with you beside me. The admission cost him something, a piece of the armor he'd worn for so long, but the liberation of honesty was worth it. Serena squeezed his hands. What time? The Thorn Hotel's boardroom occupied the entire top floor of their flagship Manhattan location. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, a reminder of the power and reach of the Thorn Empire. Elijah arrived early, Serena beside him. She wore a simple but elegant navy dress, professional, dignified, perfect for the occasion. Elijah had never been prouder to have someone at his side. The board members began arriving, surprise evident on their faces at Serena's presence. Victoria was the last to enter, her expression turning to cold fury when she saw Serena. What is she doing here? She demanded. Ms. Miles is here at my invitation, Elijah said calmly. As she's the subject of this meeting, I thought it only fair she be present. This is a closed board meeting. She has no place. Actually, interrupted Richard Kent, I'm quite interested in hearing what Ms. Miles has to say. She made quite an impression at the gala. Several other board members nodded in agreement. Victoria's lips thinned to a tight line, but she took her seat without further protest. I understand my leadership is being questioned, Elijah began, once everyone was settled, because of my association with Serena Miles. It's not just the association, Victoria cut in. It's the public nature of it, the tabloid coverage, the potential damage to our brand. Our brand, Elijah repeated. Let's talk about that. The Thorn name, the Thorn legacy, that's what this is really about, isn't it? He paced slowly around the table, making eye contact with each board member. For years, We've cultivated an image of luxury, exclusivity, old money, but that image is built on carefully constructed lies. Murmurs rippled around the table. Victoria straightened, alarm replacing anger. Elijah, this is hardly the forum. It's exactly the forum, Mother. You've questioned my judgment, my fitness to lead. So let me show the board exactly who I am and what I stand for. He gestured to Serena. Ms. Miles worked for our family when I was a child, not just as an employee, but as someone who provided genuine care during a time when my own parents were otherwise occupied. This is ancient history, Victoria snapped. It has no bearing. It has every bearing, Elijah countered. Because the reason she was fired, the reason she was removed from my life without warning or explanation, had nothing to do with her performance and everything to do with fear. He pulled out the photograph he'd taken from his father's room. This is my father, with me and Serena years ago. My father kept this hidden by his bedside. Even now, after his stroke, he holds onto it. Why do you think that is, Mother? Victoria's face had gone pale. This is inappropriate. What's inappropriate is how you've used the Thorn name as a weapon, how you've manipulated and controlled to maintain an image that matters more to you than actual human connection. He turned to the board members. What you don't know, what none of you know, is that my father helped Serena's family when she was young, paid their rent when they faced eviction, got her father into a treatment program, found her the position with our family. Surprise registered on several faces. This was not the Howard Thorne they knew, ruthless businessman, cold negotiator. After my mother had Serena fired, my father continued to help her family in secret. When her father fell ill with cancer, he sent money for medical bills. That's enough, Elijah, Victoria said, her voice dangerously low. No, it's not enough. Not nearly. Elijah faced his mother directly. You've spent years ensuring I became exactly what you wanted. Cold, ambitious, focused only on the business. You isolated me from anyone who showed me genuine care. You made sure I understood that emotions were weakness, that connections were liabilities. The boardroom was silent, the tension palpable. And now, Elijah continued, you're threatening my position because I've reconnected with someone who reminds me there's more to life than quarterly profits and brand image. Someone who sees me as a person, not just a thorn. Richard Kent cleared his throat. This is all very dramatic, Elijah. But what exactly are you saying? I'm saying that if this board forces me to choose between being CEO and being true to myself, to the person I want to become, then it's no choice at all. Gasps echoed around the table. Victoria stood, her composure finally breaking. You would throw away everything? For her? Not for her, Elijah corrected. For myself, for the chance to be more than just your puppet. He looked around the table at the shocked faces of the board members. I've prepared reports on all current projects. Transition plans are in place. If you vote to remove me, the company won't suffer. He straightened his tie. But before you decide, consider this. Do you want a CEO who maintains appearances at all costs, or one who brings integrity and humanity to the Thorn name? The room erupted in chaotic discussion. Victoria attempted to regain control, but the momentum had shifted. Richard Kent raised his hand for silence. I think we've heard enough. Perhaps we should take some time to consider. There's nothing to consider, Victoria cut in. My son is clearly not thinking rationally. His judgment is compromised by personal feelings. Personal feelings, Elijah repeated. Yes, Mother, I have those. I'm human, not just a Thorn asset. Before Victoria could respond, the boardroom door opened. All heads turned to see who would dare interrupt. A nurse wheeled Howard Thorne into the room. Silence fell instantly. Howard rarely left the mansion and never attended board meetings since his stroke. Dad? Elijah moved toward his father, confusion evident. What are you doing here? The nurse, Helen, spoke quietly. He insisted. When I told him where you were going today, he became very agitated, kept trying to say something about a board meeting. Howard's eyes were clearer than Elijah had seen in months. They fixed first on Elijah, then moved to Serena, recognition and warmth evident in his gaze. Finally, he looked at Victoria. His expression hardened. Howard, Victoria said, her voice suddenly uncertain. You shouldn't be here. You need your rest. Howard made a sound, not quite a word, but clearly a protest. With effort, he raised his functional arm and pointed at Serena, then at Elijah, then brought his hand to his heart. The gesture was simple, but unmistakable. I think, Richard Kent said slowly, that Mr. Thorne is making his position clear. Victoria looked around the table, suddenly aware she was losing ground. This is ridiculous. Howard is not well. He doesn't understand. I think he understands perfectly, Richard interrupted. And I, for one, find myself impressed by Elijah's honesty today. It takes courage to speak truth to power, especially when that power is your own family. Murmurs of agreement circulated the table. Victoria's face flushed with anger and humiliation. So that's it? You're all taking his side? There are no sides, Mother, Elijah said quietly. Just people trying to do what's right. He moved to stand beside Serena, taking her hand openly. I won't apologize for finding someone who brings out the best in me, who reminds me there's more to life than the Thorne legacy. Victoria gathered her papers with shaking hands. You'll regret this, Elijah. Both of you. She swept from the room, dignity intact but power diminished. In the silence that followed, Howard made another sound, softer this time, almost like a sigh of relief. Richard Kent stood. I think we've had enough drama for one day. Unless there are objections, I move to adjourn this meeting with no action taken regarding Mr. Thorne's position. The vote was unanimous. As board members filed out, many stopped to shake Elijah's hand or nod respectfully to Serena. Richard Kent was the last to leave. Your father was different once, he said quietly to Elijah. Before Victoria hardened him. Perhaps you're more like the man he used to be than the man he became. When everyone else had gone, only Elijah, Serena, Howard, and Helen remained in the vast boardroom. Elijah knelt beside his father's wheelchair. Thank you, Dad, for coming, for everything. Howard's eyes were warm with emotions he couldn't express in words. He reached out a trembling hand to touch Elijah's face, a gesture of affection Elijah couldn't remember receiving since childhood. Then Howard turned to Serena, extending his hand to her. After a moment's hesitation, she took it, her eyes bright with unshed tears. It's good to see you again, Mr. Thorne, she said softly. Howard squeezed her hand, then placed it in Elijah's, a simple action laden with meaning and blessing. Helen gently suggested it was time to take Howard home. As they left, Elijah and Serena found themselves alone in the boardroom, still holding hands. Are you okay? Serena asked. That was intense. Surprisingly, yes. Elijah felt lighter than he had in years. I've spent so long trying to live up to the Thorne name. It feels good to just be me. And who is that? The real Elijah Thorne. He smiled, pulling her closer. I'm still figuring that out, but I know I want you beside me while I do. Even after all this, your mother won't give up easily. Let her try. Some things are worth fighting for. The city stretched out below them, vast and full of possibilities. For the first time, Elijah saw not just the Thorne Empire, but a world of choices, of chances, of love. 2 months later, Elijah stood at a podium in the community center where Serena worked. Camera flashes popped as he made the announcement. The Thorne Foundation is proud to announce a new initiative supporting after-school programs in underserved communities across the city. This $10 million commitment will provide resources, facilities, and staff for children who need safe spaces and mentorship. Applause filled the room. In the front row, Serena watched with pride, her eyes shining. Beside her sat Howard in his wheelchair, more alert and engaged than he'd been in years. His weekly visits with Serena seemed to have awakened something in him, a connection to a happier past. Victoria had not given up easily. There had been attempts to turn board members against Elijah, whisper campaigns questioning his judgment, but each had failed in the face of his newfound conviction and Howard's silent but powerful support. After the announcement, as the crowd mingled and celebrated, Elijah found his way to Serena. What did you think? He asked, taking her hand. I think you're going to change a lot of lives, including your own. In the months since the confrontation in the boardroom, Elijah had indeed changed. He'd streamlined his role at Thorne Hotels, delegating more, creating time for things that mattered. He'd started volunteering at the community center, discovering a talent for mentoring troubled teens, and he'd fallen deeply, irrevocably in love with Serena. They'd taken things slowly, both aware of the complexities of their shared history. But with each day, each conversation, each discovered commonality and respected difference, the bond between them had strengthened. I have something for you, Elijah said, leading her to a quiet corner. A letter, but I want you to read it later, when you're alone. Serena took the sealed envelope, curiosity in her eyes. What is it? Just some thoughts. Things I want you to know. Later that night, in the privacy of her apartment, the same apartment where Elijah now spent most of his evenings, Serena opened the letter. It contained just 5 words, written in Elijah's elegant hand. I'm still that boy. Yours? Tears filled her eyes as the meaning washed over her. The boy she'd once known, kind, sensitive, loving, was still there inside the man. And that man was offering her his heart, his future. When Elijah arrived an hour later, she was waiting at the door. She didn't speak, just held up the letter, eyes shining with answered questions. "Well?" he asked, his voice soft with vulnerability. "Am I still yours?" Serena pulled him inside, closing the door on the world that had tried to keep them apart. "Always," she whispered against his lips. "You always were." In that moment, as their past and present aligned in a kiss that promised a shared future, both knew they had found something rare and precious. Her love strong enough to survive separation and status, to overcome manipulation and fear, to bridge different worlds and create something new, something real. And as the night deepened around them, Elijah Thorne, no longer just an heir, no longer defined by his name or his wealth, felt truly rich for the first time in his life, because he had found his way home, to himself, to Serena, to love. The end.